Good morning, everybody. News yesterday comes from Austria and Hungary, who have both said that they are not going to send any more weapons to the Zelensky regime in Ukraine because they do not want to escalate the conflict any further, which is eminently sensible. It's what I've been saying from the first day of this conflict. It could all have been avoided. It can still be avoided in terms of not escalating things anymore. We have other Western leaders who seem hell-bent on escalating this to the point where there is nothing of the Ukrainian people left, because they want to use it ultimately to bring about regime change in Russia and split Russia up into lots of small statelets, which can then be controlled by the military industrial complex and corporate America. That's the wrong future for the world. But it does seem, as well as Austria and Hungary now coming out with some sensible statements on this conflict, unlike Germany, whose foreign minister said the other week that we're now at war with Russia. We're not, as far as I know. Nobody else has made such a crass and clumsy statement that we are at war. They're still pretending that we're not, although they are sending lots of money and weapons to the Zelensky regime. But what it does seem to be happening is that these commitments have been made since the start of this year, 2023, to give more weapons. Tanks are now the latest tranche of weapons which other countries have promised, including Germany, Poland, the UK, the USA. But these tanks are not going to get there until the end of March at the earliest. In the case of the USA, they're saying their tanks are not going to get there until the end of the year. So that isn't going to do much good in the next couple of months. And in the next couple of months, things in the Donbass could change significantly. And they do look like they are changing significantly, because the key strategic town of Bakhmut, that if you've been watching Military Summary Channel and others, you'll know that this is a real key town. And there's been the battle for this town going on for 6 months or more. So the Russians very quickly took Mariupol and Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, large towns in the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics. They're struggling to take Bakhmut. Well, not really struggling, they're just going very, very slow, grinding it down, because that's where there is massive, huge resistance. There's the biggest, most fortified resistance line in the world, running right through the Donbass area, that's been built up over 8 years, been supported appallingly by Western governments supporting these National Socialist battalions like the Azov battalion to man that and to fortify that. So that's taking a long time to grind down. But now the Russians with the Wagner group essentially have surrounded the city in an effective cauldron, and that's being cut off. And now they're going much quicker into the countryside around it. So when there is a proper fall of Bakhmut, which there will be very soon, then things are going to go much, much quicker, because the defense lines behind Bakhmut are not as strong. So we're likely to see a greater, faster push through the Donetsk Oblast over the next few weeks. And Western tanks will not be there in time. But even if they do get to Ukraine, Putin has offered a $70,000 reward for any soldiers who take out a tank. So they're going to be looking for these tanks. There's 100 of them maybe coming. I think Germany's given export licenses for 139 tanks, 12 Challenger tanks coming from the UK, not until the end of March and so on. But they're going to be trying to take these out, just like they've taken out a lot of the HIMARS systems and the um, the air defense systems and so on, and they won't last very long. Ukraine already had over 2,000 tanks from the Soviet era. Obviously, these ones that are coming in from the West are going to be much more heavily armor plated. They're going to have much more gear and gizmos on them, night vision, rangefinders, and so on, which the Ukrainian ones don't have. But Russia's already taken out over 1,000 Ukrainian tanks. They're not going to have too much trouble taking out another 150 or so, maybe at max, coming from NATO countries. So from commentators who are really, really good commentators, like Gonzalo Lira is a good guy to listen to, basically they give the opinion, the commentary, that this is basically all over, bar the shouting. And essentially is the battle's going to rumble on for Bakhmut for another couple of weeks until it's taken, like the Russians took Mariupol. They'll have to flush out the National Socialist brigades and so on that might be the hardcore staying there, but then they're going to go much quicker over the countryside, and a couple more big towns to take, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, but then there's really nothing to stop them from advancing all the way to the Dnieper River, which could happen, relatively quickly compared to the speed that these things have gone in the last 6 months. So it's nearly over, and to be honest, that's a good thing, because if it is, then we can get to a point where we can stop the fighting, stop the slaughter of young, innocent Ukrainian men who are being taken and conscripted to go to the front line and just getting put through the meat grinder. Not the National Socialists, but just ordinary people who want to be doctors and engineers or plumbers or builders or artists or musicians, and they are just being taken, conscripted, and slaughtered. And it's absolutely terrible. Mostly it's more terrible for the ordinary, innocent Ukrainians, which the American deep state cares absolutely nothing for, because they want Ukraine, first of all, as a corrupt country where they can launder their money, where they can do all kinds of dreadful practices, biolabs and so on that have been found there, and other even worse things that I've heard about, which I won't mention here. Also as a wedge to break up Russia, and also as another wedge to separate Germany from Russia. And one of the things that has happened outside the zone, of course, is the Nord Stream pipeline was sabotaged. And the finger points very, very clearly at somebody who did that. So obviously wasn't the Russians, because when the Swedes investigated, they said, well, we don't know who did it. They couldn't come to any conclusion, although, people can come to their own conclusions, using Occam's razor. So Hungary and Austria have injected a bit of common sense into this situation. Let's hope that other countries follow, and this conflict can come to an end, and so we can try to go back to restore normal relations and end the fighting as soon as possible.